A very good Saturday morning to everyone. I'm Freddy from PEM Sarawak chapter. Welcome to our very first CPD event in year 2022, jointly organized by PEM Sarawak chapter and also Blue Scott Lysat. Thank you all for joining this session with us. Today we have AR Dr. Lim Yaik Wah this morning to share with us on the topic, how do architects use BIM, Building Information Modeling. Before I proceed with the short introduction, here are some information for those who need the CPD points. In order for you to get the CPD point, there will be a sign in and sign out code on the screen later. And you will need to write both down for the next step purpose. Then the QR code will be shared on the closing slide with the clickable link in the chat box, which will direct you to the Google form. You need to fill in and submit the form, then you are eligible for the CPD point. For your information, the Google form is accessible for 30 minutes only after the sharing session. The talk today is on BIM, and AR Dr. Lim's sharing will focus on the benefits and applications for BIM for architecture practice in Malaysia. Before I pass to AR Dr. Lim, I have a bit to share about our speaker. AR Dr. Lim Yaik Wah is currently an Associate Professor of Architecture at the Faculty of Built Environment and Surveying, University Technology Malaysia, UTM, and the Deputy Director for Center for the Study of Built Environment in Malaywar, Kalam, UTM, and he is also the Principal of Lim Yaik Wah Architects. So without wasting any more time, here you go. AR Dr. Lim, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Architect Freddy, for the introduction. And very good morning to all the participants. And thank you, PEM Sarawak chapter and also Lysat for organizing these events. It's such an honor that today I can share about how architects use BIM in this talk this morning. Let me start my share screen. Okay, is my screen clear?
Yes, clear. We can see it.
Okay, good. Okay, once again, welcome to this morning CPD's webinar. Today, the topic I'm going to talk about is how to use BIM, but it's more than that. To be more specific, is how do architects use BIM? Yeah, we know architects are the very important consultants in the building industry. We should leading the industry in terms of technology advancement as well. That's why today we want to look at how architects can benefit from using BIM. Before I start the talk, let me briefly introduce myself once again. My research area is actually more on the sustainable architecture, BIM, and building performance simulation. And currently I'm a researcher and also associate professor in the UTM. And I'm also the member of LAM, PEM, MGBC, and so on. Okay, before we start the talk, actually, I would like to do a simple survey. If possible, could you use your mobile phone to scan the code, the QR code on the screen, or actually you can just click the link. Okay, I post the link in the chat box. You can click the link and straight away it bring you to that page. Just some simple survey before we start the talk so that I know more a bit your background. Can you do that? If you have a mobile phone, you can just scan the QR code, or you prefer use the website, you can just click the link, which I just type in the chat box, or you can follow the link on the screen. Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute to do that. When you open that page, actually you can skip. You do not need to put your name. Okay, that's okay. Skip it and straight away go to the survey. So I hope this morning talk will be more interactive as we are talking about BIM. BIM is a process that involves technology and people. Yeah, So we are the people here to this morning. So hope to get some feedback from you as well, to know what is your background, and also to know how is your experience with BIM. Okay, for those who have already logged in, let's start the first questions. May I know what is your profession? Okay, are you architects, or maybe we have other consultants here with us today? Or are you engineer, QS, or you're from the contractor or developer, or even lecturer who are from the academicians? Have everyone responded? Okay, based on the percentage, suit to the title this morning, how do architects use BIM? Majority of the respondents are from the architects, yeah, and some from engineer, QS, and some from the others. Okay, that's good. Welcome everyone for this talk. Then we go to the next questions. Have you used BIM before this? Okay, have you used BIM before this? You want to see, is it majority already experienced with BIM, or you're still very new? Okay, it's almost 50-50. Oops, the yes is dropping a bit. Okay, I would say almost half-half. Okay, that means quite many of you have experience using BIM before this. That's very good. Okay, let's move to the next questions. What BIM modeling software have you used? Okay, we know in the market, we have Revit, ArchiCAD, Bentley, or it could be others. Or you have no experience before this, you can just click E, which is none. That's okay. I'm not promoting any software here. I just want to get an overview, yeah, from this survey. All right. Okay, most of you say Revit. Yeah, indeed, there's one of the most commonly used BIM software in the market. All right, thanks everyone for your feedback. We will come back to the survey again when come to the almost the end of the talk. Yeah, now we go to the how should or why should architects use BIM? Yeah, first thing we'll look at why architects, or including other consultants, yeah, in the building industry, why should we use BIM? First of all, we know our world is changing. Yeah, this is the phone that we have more than 100 years ago. I'm not sure, maybe some of you haven't seen this kind of phone before, or do you still remember using this kind of phone many years ago? But after 50 years, we have this mobile phone, okay, which was very big. It's very difficult to carry around. And the only function is just to make a call. Yeah, and you have to remember all the phone number very well in order to make the call. But nowadays, we have the smartphone, which is more than just a phone. We have all the technologies integrated together where we can access to all kinds of information through a very small gadgets. We call it as a convergence of the technology that we have today. And if you look at the automobile industry, we can look at this is the type of car that we have 100 years ago. Compared to today, we have the electric car, and not only that, it's also a self-driving car. Okay, the technology advanced a lot in other industry. And if you look at the technology in computing or artificial intelligence, AI, and 3D printing, nowadays we have 3D printed rocket engine prototype designed by AI itself. It's designed by the computer, 3D printed. This is all called the convergence of technologies, and we can see that our world is keep advancing in many industries. But if we look at building technology today, this is the building that we have more than 100 years ago. And compared to About 80 years ago, this is the conventional building that we have today in our city. So if we compare 100 years ago and today, of course, there are some new building materials, technology comes out. I do not deny that. But in general, is our process, our workflow, the way we practice is still very much similar. Okay, we still do a lot of 2D drawings, paper-based, the way we communicate with consultants, with contractor. So it's a question here, whether it's the building industry behind on the technology changes. But if you look at today, the demand of building industry is keep on increasing. Yeah, especially in Malaysia, we know that we are still a developing country. We still very much depends on the construction industry for our GDP. And based on the estimation, the construction industry is going to expand 10.3% per annum in our country. And there's a strong tie with the GDP in our economy. But on the other hand, we have a lot of issues and challenges in the building industry. For instance, there's a waste, errors, cost overruns, time overruns. And a lot of things is due to the lack of collaboration or poor information integration throughout the life cycle of a project. If you look at the chart here, okay, if you look at this chart, we can see that during the planning phase, the information continue to increase the value. But when it comes to design phase, when we pass from one consultant to another consultant, when the engineers, the QS come in, there are a lot of information lost throughout the process. And we need to rebuild all this information again. And when it comes to the construction phase, where we call for tender and the contractor come on board, then again, a lot of information need to build out again. Okay, because all this info we pass from one parties to another parties is through 2D paper-based, and a lot of documents, and sometimes those documents might not be updated, and maybe the contractor refer to the outdated drawings, and a lot of discrepancy might happen on the site. And all these things actually will waste time and also additional costs, because a lot of reworks, redo, or demolition might be needed. And even worse, when it comes to the operational phase, when we pass the information to the end user, even our as-built drawings might not be enough information for the end users for the operation and management phase. So all this, suppose our goal is to have a continuous information collection, but the reality is that every process, every phases are fragmented. That's why there's a waste of time, a waste of cost, money, okay, and manpower throughout the process. And we know building industry actually generate as much as 30% construction waste, and is expected to reach 2.2 billion tons of waste annually worldwide by 2025, another 3 years to go. So can you imagine the resources that we pump into building industry, 30% will go to waste eventually. Yeah, it could be construction waste, demolition, and so on. And building sector consumes about 36% of the energy use, and is slow in adopting technology innovation despite the project complexity is getting higher and higher, and demand of sustainability is also getting higher. We know that we have more complex project nowadays compared to 50 years, 100 years ago. We have mixed developments, high rises. Those are require more coordination or better collaboration among the parties in order to optimize the delivery. Therefore, the development of BIM has been recognized as a platform for sustainable and integrated building design and project delivery. So now we want to look at what is BIM. Okay, of course, we know BIM stands for Building Information Modeling. But what is the definition of BIM compared to CAD? If you look at the definition by American Institute of Architects, it says that BIM is a model-based technology, and that is linked with the database of project info and covers the geometrical, spatial, geographical information. It's more than just the physical, but also the spatial and also geographical and so on. And if you look at the definition by the building smart, it says that it's a digital representation of physical and functional characteristic of a facilities. That means not only the physical, where what you can see, but it's also the functional aspect. For example, the operation, the management, and so on throughout the life cycle of the buildings, and is shared on the digital representation founded on an open standard for interoperability. So back to a simple questions. What are the differences between CAD and BIM? Yeah, because some people look at BIM, it's just like another 3D CAD software. But actually it's more than that. That's what I want to tell all of us this morning. BIM is more than just a software. Yeah. If you look at CAD, I believe all of us are very familiar with CAD. Okay, we stand for computer-aided design or drafting. It's all lines and text. That's it, right? But when we move to BIM, in the BIM, it's more than just a 3D modeling. It's more than just an object. Because every components in the BIM model, there are properties, there are information. The keywords here is information. We can put in the info to say that this is a column, this is a beam, this is a wall. What type of wall? RC wall, brick wall, what kind of windows, glazing, and so on. That means when we model the roof, it's a roof, model the beam is a beam. Unlike CAD, in CAD, everything that we draw is just lines, text, object, without meaning if we don't put the specification. But in BIM, we can put in all the information. That's why it's so useful. The information, the data can be used throughout the life cycle of the project, not only during the design, but also during the construction and operational phase. And that is the advantage of BIM. Now we look at the main topic they want to talk this morning. How do architects use BIM? Okay, and actually applicable for other consultants as well. How can we benefit from BIM? And this morning, I hope for those who are still new to BIM, you can look at BIM from another perspective. Yeah, it's not just a software, it's more than just a tool. Okay, because in the market, some people think that BIM is Revit, Revit is BIM. As long as I use Revit, then I declare that I'm using BIM. But actually, BIM is a process. BIM itself is a process. Okay, it's a project delivery paradigm shift that we shift from the old process, which is CAD, and is documentation-centric model. Why I say documentation-centric? Because we know in the practice, we have so many drawings, so many documents, RFA, RFI, throughout the construction process. And all these are paper-based. And the way that we process from the design concept to the documents, drawings for the construction is disjointed. We need to redo all the drawings, start from scratch. And our drawings are not synchronized. The architect's drawing, the CNS drawing, the M&E drawings are developed separately. Yeah, and there might be discrepancy among the drawings if there's not well coordinated. And even worse, when come to the construction, when the contractor need to redraw everything for the shop drawings and so on, then there is a lot of time wasted, taken up just for the coordination purpose. And the process is fragmented. That's why, like the chart that I showed just now, we have taken a lot of time and might not be effective throughout the process. But when we shift to BIM, BIM is a new process. Yeah, more than just technology. As I said, BIM is also people, it's also process. It involves people, involves technology. And it's an information-centric model. Why I say so is because we know that we have a centralized model where we have single source of references for all parties in the building industry, including the architect, CNS, M&E, contractor, facility manager, and so on, where everyone can refer to the same database, which can be synchronized and updated. And BIM is an intelligent model where any representation, like for example, when you update the plan, the section, the 3D, everything will be synchronized together. And this can be carried on to the construction and operational phase. And that's what we say the paradigm shift from the documentation-centric model to the information-centric model. And that is BIM process. And if you ask why BIM, why should we use BIM? We look at the benefits. Of course, I don't have time to go into one by one, but I just briefly tell you, those are the benefits that we can achieve when we have fully implemented BIM in our project. For instance, a better outcomes through collaboration, an enhanced performance, optimized solution, greater predictability, faster project delivery. We know that if we have well coordinated our model, when we come to the construction, we already can predict what will happen. Okay, we can visualize in 3D, and we can also run some analysis. Later on, we'll talk about what is 4D, 5D, 6D analysis, so that we can optimize our solution and fits first time. Yeah, that means we do not need to construct it, then need to demolish again and reduce the waste and so on. And the adoption of BIM, actually, there are three main drivers. We have the technology. Technology is already available. We have the business. We know that there are some demand from the market to implement BIM. And what is very important is the culture. Yeah, the culture is the people. Who are the people? We. Okay, we are those involved in the building industry. So how should we change the process, the working culture in the building industry so that we can adopt BIM? If you look at adoption of BIM, we define it at level 0, 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, when we are in level 0, that means our maturity level, BIM maturity level 0 means that we are still using CAD. Okay, basically we are still paper-based, drawings, lines, and text. Maybe some of us are still at the BIM maturity level 0. That's okay. Start the first step today. Move to level 1. Okay, what is level 1? Level 1 basically is using BIM for modeling. Okay, it's more for objects, model, and it's a file-based collaboration. That means we still use BIM, but it's more like a tool to do 3D modeling, to produce drawings, and then when we collaborate with other parties, other consultants, we are using file-based. That means we send our files to them, our model file to them. That is the first step. Yeah. So I'm so glad this morning when I do the survey, almost half of you say yes, you have adopted BIM. Yeah, and you have many of you have said you have used some software. Even you are at the level 1 first step, that is a very good start. Yeah, as long as you started, you are on the journey. Then the next step is to the level 2. Okay, if you are on the first step today, I encourage you to move to level 2. What is level 2? When it comes to level 2, then we have file-based collaboration and library management. We have more collaboration with external parties. We collaborate among the consultants during the design coordination, and also collaborate with the contractor, the builders, subcon using the same BIM model. So when we started to have collaboration, we are moving to level 2. Yeah. When we are in level 1, we just use it more for modeling. Basically, it's modeling. But when we move to level 2, then we use the BIM for collaboration. We have proper library management. Maybe some of us are already at level 2. That's very good. Then we can move to level 3. Yeah, the ultimate level, we call it iBIM, the integrated BIM. Where we start to have integrated web services, we have cloud-based database storage, where we can collaborate with all parties. And also we have integration with different application of BIM. We can use 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D BIM throughout the project life cycle. That means it's the full implementation of BIM throughout the project life cycle. And the data is at the open source where we can share from one party to another party, from one phase to the other phases. Yeah, that is the level 3. So today, regardless you are at which level, move on. Yeah, if you are at level 0, start the first step, go to level 1. If you're already in level 1, very good, go to level 2, level 3, and so on. That's about the BIM maturity map. Yeah, but of course, you cannot be today at level 0 and tomorrow you expect yourself come to level 3. You require time. It takes time to adopt the new process. If you look at the adoption worldwide, you can see that actually many countries already have some framework, guideline, or even mandatory adoption of BIM. Okay, for example, in UK, back in 2016, BIM is already mandatory for all the public projects, and similar in Singapore, Hong Kong, and some other countries. To scope down, okay, if you look at in the developed countries, for example, in North America, UK, they are already adopted BIM. For instance, I mentioned in UK, all the public sector work is mandatory to use level 2 BIM. Yeah, level 2 BIM back in 2016. And if you look at Asia, very close to us is Singapore. BCA Singapore already have the e-submission through BIM, and BIM is compulsory for any project over $50 million value, and also for all the public work projects, okay, back in 2016. So if you want to do a project in the government sector or higher than $50 million, then have to use BIM for the submission. And similar in Hong Kong, yeah, back in 2015. Then now we want to look at how about Malaysia? Yeah, are we ready? Are we good enough to make BIM become mandatory? If we base on the survey in 2016 by CIDB, we can see that in the central region, 78% of the respondents say that they have adopted BIM. But compared to other regions are still very low, including in southern region is only 8%, in Sabah Sarawak only 6%. Then if you look at by profession, we can see that actually architects is the leading one. Yeah, 42% of the architects respondents say that they've adopted BIM, followed by CNS, QS, and contractor. Yeah, but for M&E is still a bit low. I'm not sure is there any M&E engineer here today. Yeah, but from the survey just now, I think most of them responded architect, QS, and some from the others. Yeah, so we are still at the good side, but we still can further improve. Then if you look at what are the challenges to implement BIM, the top rank challenge based on the respondent from this survey is saying that high cost of technology. Yeah, and then the second one is again cost, high training costs. Then the third one is lack of knowledge, and followed by high cost of software. And the last one is insufficient availability of BIM training. So if based on the top 5, I would say it's more about cost and training. Yeah, the technology know-how and also the costing. That's why this morning the talk is a way for training awareness as well. Yeah. Then for the technology and the software actually are already available. Of course, you require some investment in order to start using those technology. So now we want to look at how to start using BIM. Yeah, we have already looked at, yeah, we should use BIM, and how can we use BIM, then where to start. This is a very important question, because I have conducted quite a number of hands-on Revit training for modeling and even for some analysis. Then a lot of time when some of the firms send their staff for this kind of 3 to 4 days training, but after that when they go back to their offices, they are not confident to start using it. Even though they have gone through this 3 to 4 days training, actually it's still not enough. It's just like you learn driving, right? If you want to learn driving a car, what is the best way to learn it? Is it reading a book? Or is it watching a YouTube video tutorial on how to drive? Of course not. Yeah, the best way is that for you to get a car and start driving it. Then it's a hands-on practice. So we need to have some hands-on practice, even pilot projects, in order to start using BIM in our organization. So at the very early stage, when we want to implement BIM, it's important for us to have a well-defined BIM execution plan, or we call it BEP, okay, BIM execution plan. This is what a lot of organizations do not have a clear BEP. That's why they do not know how to start or where to start. Okay. In the BEP, we should include or define all these, like what is the project goals, what are the BIM users and capabilities for that project. Do we only use BIM for modeling, or actually we want to use BIM for collaboration with other parties? Or we also want to use BIM for different kind of analysis. For instance, doing simulation, doing cost estimation, and so on. If that is the case, then we need to define what are the users and what are the information needed and what are the appropriate tools to do that. Okay. Apart from that, also need to define all the roles and responsibilities. Who should start the model? Whose scope? Okay, what scope? Who should model that part? Who should model the components? And what is the BIM process design? And also what are the required LOD, level of developments? Okay, and collaboration procedure, quality control. And what are the model standards and guidelines that we should refer? This is something very important. Yeah, especially if we want to collaborate with external parties, make sure that we are speaking the same language. If today I speak another language that you cannot understand, then there's no way that we can communicate. So similar in BIM, we have to refer to same standards and guidelines. If the way we model, we name the components, we set the standard are different. So when we share the model with other parties, for example, when the architect share the archi model with the CNS for structural model, then might have issues because the way we set the level, the grid line, base point, everything is not coordinated. Then a lot of reworks might be required in order to refine or to touch up the model. When we talk about roles and responsibilities, in an organization, we have BIM manager, BIM coordinator, and also BIM modeler. Okay, that's how we can set up a good team in an organization, in your firm. The BIM modeler is the one who will do the BIM model based on their standards and prepare the model for coordination. While BIM coordinator could be a BIM modeler as well, but he or she is also in charge of coordinating the model for the projects to maintain the BEP, manage the BIM library, while the BIM manager will be the head who oversee, to monitor the whole BIM process and BIM execution in the organization, to build out the team, to facilitate the BIM method and also the tools. And these are some examples of BIM standards or guide that we can refer to. For instance, in British standard BS 1192, BSI ISO standard, those are available. But if you look at Malaysia, okay, currently we actually do not have a very clear single standard for our BIM adoption. Okay, in the public sector, in government sector, we have JKR BIM standard, which is very good. That for the public sector government project, we refer to the BIM JKR standard for the modeling. It will give you guideline for how to name the components, how to set the levels, the base point, and so on. And apart from that, CIDB also have some BIM guide. Those are just some guide, okay, on awareness, readiness, adoption, and BIM execution plan. It's not a standard yet, and CIDB is also having a BIM roadmap for Malaysia. That is the problem here, is that in the private sector especially, we do not have a single well-defined standard for everyone to follow. So before we start the project, it's very important for the project team to sit down, discuss, and decide which standard that we should adopt, we should follow throughout the project. And we look at the application of BIM. A lot of time we only look at, it's like the tip of the iceberg. Okay, we call it a BIM pyramid. This is like iceberg. We always only see the top, which is the building models. We have the structural models, RT model, M&E models, and so on. But actually below it, there are a lot of information and data. We need to manage the information through schedule, classification. Well, all the data is the one that we put in. Yeah. If we just put in a lot of info or data without well managing, that means those data is not meaningful. Okay. But well, if we manage it well, then it becomes information for us to make decision. We can put in any kind of data in the model, but the question is it required or not? Okay, we should only put in those data that is important, relevant, and we should manage the data so that it becomes information for us to make informed decision in our design and coordination. That's why I say a lot of time people only look at the tip of the iceberg and always think that BIM is about 3D modeling. But actually it's more than that. Okay, below this 3D model, there are a lot of data and information that we can use for different applications. Now we look at what are the application of BIM. BIM is more than just 3D. A lot of time we only look at BIM like another 3D modeling. But if we look at 3D model software, actually they do not have info. An object is an object. You can change the size, you can change the texture, but at the end, it's still an object that's 3D model. But in BIM, every object is a component with info. So the info can be used for different analysis. If you look at 3D application, of course, is including the visualization, rendering, walkthrough. Even can use it for fabrication and for the manufacturing and construction. Then what is 4D? Okay, maybe for some of you it's a new term. What is 4D BIM? 4D means the fourth dimension is the time. Okay, 4D BIM is scheduling. How we can model the phases of the project, construction phases, and we can even simulate the construction sequence. A lot of time we look at the contractor work program, right? It's all based on Microsoft projects, but it's just graph. How do we visualize when the contractor say that it's 30% completion, progress is 30%? What is 30%? We look at the chart, the work program, that line is 30%. But how is 30% on site? We cannot visualize unless we quantify the material, the costing, and so on. But if with BIM, actually, we can simulate the work program in the 3 dimension. Okay, that means you follow the sequence, the ground beam, then the column up, casting the slab, casting the beam. So when up to 30%, how is it? Is it up to the column? Is it up to the beam or up to which floor? We can visualize in the 3D model, in the BIM model. And 5D, the 5th dimension is about cost, especially relevant to the quantity surveyor. We can use 5D BIM for cost estimation. And also 6D is sustainability, where we can use the BIM model to do some simulation analysis in terms of the energy performances, the environmental performance, and also for green building certification, for example, GPI, LEED, and so on. And for 7D is operation and facility management. This is during the operational phase, where the facility manager can use the BIM model throughout the life cycle of the project. We also call it as built BIM. Yeah, this is example of level of development where we start from LD 100, 200, 300, all the way until 500 and 600 throughout different phases of the project, from concept, prelim, detail, construction, okay, execute, and operation. And there are so many tools or software available in the market. You can look from the slides. Again, I'm not promoting any software here. So you can see architects can use different kinds of software like Revit, Archicad, Bentley, Vectorworks. And for contractor, a lot of times they will use this Navisworks, okay, for coordination and also to simulate the construction sequence. This example of 3D BIM, 3D modeling. This one is 4D and 5D BIM, where we can use BIM to simulate the construction sequence, as you see at the bottom here, which is the Navisworks. Okay, you can see that there's the work program and also the 3D simulation, where you can even see how is the construction assessed, where should put the tower crane, okay, where should the truck come in, and manage the site, especially the logistic issue if the site is very constrained. And 4D, 5D, you can see, for example, we call, okay, those can do some cost analysis. And this 6D, where we can use BIM for simulation, analyze for sustainability performance, or sometimes we call it as green BIM. We can simulate the energy performance, the daylight, ventilation, and so on. And these are some examples of software. For instance, Insight, which is integrated with Revit, you have ISVE, Design Builder, and so on. And now, actually, we have a lot of resources of BIM library. Okay, if you search online, you Google, I believe you can find quite a numbers. So we said that the technology actually is ready. Many people has already adopted BIM. And there's a lot of resources or software that's available. I just give some example here. The CIDB My BIM library. Okay, if you search this mybimlibrary.my, you find this website where CIDB have built up some library, the BIM object, okay, a library that available for download. For example, some of the walls, some of the components, architectural, and some precast component as well. Okay, internationally, we also have like UK NBS National BIM Library, which is also accessible. And also from some manufacturers, they also provide their BIM library. Okay, for example, our sponsor today, Lysa, they have the BIM object library as well, where you can access to the web page and download those products that you can straight away apply to your building design and see how is the application, the sizes, and so on. And another example is like IKEA. Okay, if you want to do some ID layout, you can also go to the IKEA website, to download some of this BIM object and put into the model. And we also have some open source, okay, open source library where the users can download and upload the components, the library. Okay, anyone can register. For example, very popular one is the Revit City or BIM object. You can register, upload, or download the BIM object, which is open source. And CIDB also have started the initiative for BIM e-submission, okay, the National BIM e-submission, where it is for public project, more than 100 million, to implement level 2 BIM by 2019. That is their target. Okay, and they also have some pilot projects to implement level 3 BIM by 2020, and some selected PBT, okay, some selected local authority have initiated the BIM e-submission. Okay, for example, Putrajaya, MBPJ, MBMB, and so on. So it's still at the initiative stage for this BIM e-submission. But if you look at the worldwide adoption of BIM, we know that sooner or later, more and more countries will make that as mandatory. So just to sum up, these are the benefits of BIM for different project stakeholders. Okay, for the clients, of course, they're used for visualization, option analysis, and cost estimation, and so on. We focus on architects. Yeah, for architects, we can use BIM for visualization. You can visualize our design and show to our clients and do proper coordination during the design phase. You can do option analysis, can compare different performances for different options, sustainability analysis, okay, quantity survey, cost estimation, phasing, okay, 4D scheduling, constructability analysis, and performance analysis. Okay, similar for contractor, they can even use it for site logistics. But for the facility manager, they can use it for building management during the operational phase. Okay, now we come to the last part of the survey. Okay, I hope you are still logged into that website. Still remember the link. So you can respond, what BIM application have you used? Okay, we talk about 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, right? At the beginning, some of you responded, you have used some BIM software, you have started using BIM. So you use it for what? Is it only 3D or you use it for 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D also? Or if you are not sure or you did not use, then it's okay. All right, thanks for the response. So we can see that majority of us only use BIM for 3D modeling. Yeah, so I hope after this, you can start into other applications, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D. It's more than just 3D. Okay, the next question. Do you collaborate with other parties using BIM? Yes or no? Is it you just use BIM for yourself, modeling, and then turn into 2D drawings? There are some people doing that. Basically, you use BIM, just modeling tools to generate drawings. So in that case, you are not collaborating with other parties using BIM. Yes or no? Okay, majority no. So maybe you are either in level 1 or level 0. Okay, if you started collaboration, you are moving to level 2, and sooner, hopefully, you can go to level 3. Next question, what is the greatest challenge? Okay, pick one greatest challenge for you to implement BIM. Is it because of lack of knowledge? Or is it the high BIM software or hardware costs, high BIM training costs, or lack of time to learn BIM? Yeah, I know when we are working, we are so busy, whether we have time to learn a new process, a new tools. Is it lack of training? Or is it you found it, you try to learn, but you found it very difficult to learn? Or actually BIM is not required? But if you look at the roadmap or adoption worldwide, you know that sooner or later BIM will become mandatory. Yeah, that's what happened in some developed countries, and our country also having that initiative now. So it seems like the top challenges, one is lack of time to learn, and then also the lack of BIM training. So it's all about learning. So we need to be committed. If you want to adopt a new technology, remember the 3 driver: culture. Culture is very important. Okay, culture, business, technology. Culture is about the people. Okay, the last question. Do you expect to implement BIM in the next 3 years? Yes or no? This is a very important question. Do you expect to implement BIM in your work, in your practice in the next 3 years? Okay, very good. 75% say yes. Okay, 25% say not sure. It's very good that none of you say no. Yeah, I really hope that after this talk, we'll give you some awareness and understanding and start to look at how to implement BIM in the coming years. I would say not next 3 years, maybe next 3 months, or even next 3 weeks, if you can. All right, we come to the last part of this morning talk about success story. We have talked about all those benefits and how to start implement BIM and what are the application of BIM. Now we look at, is there any success story? Yeah, one of the example is this company called ARCHITECTS Construction. Okay, they started implement BIM in Q3 in 2011 and successful in Q1 2012. The first BIM project, $150 million tower in Abu Dhabi, resulted in 3,000 clash detection. Okay, remember we can coordinate the model using software like Navisworks to detect any clashes. The clashes is like, for example, the beam clash with the M&E piping or any other RT component clash with the structural component and so on. An estimated saving is 3 million, okay, just on the clash detection. Well, for the investment in the software and training was about 300K. So the return or the saving ratio is actually 1 to 10. Invested 300K, saving 3 million. Another example in Dubai Festival City, yeah, they invested for this project office tower, they invested, the cost is about 265K and the saving is about 2.65 million saving, which is 5% of the projects. And there's a lot of major issues detected. For example, you can avoid the redesign, rework, and so on. So again, the ROI is about 10 times. Another example, Shanghai Tower in China. Okay, 362-meter tall building, construction in Q4 2008 until 2014, and they have used different kind of applications, including Revit, architecture, structure, MEP, Navisworks for coordination, Ecotech for analysis, and accelerated the design process and a good collaboration among the worldwide international team. And they use BIM for design phase, construction, and also operation phase. And those benefits that receive include improved design communication, enhanced coordination, converts more energy, BIM for life cycle, and completion on time. That is very important. Yeah, and also reduce the material by 32%. And lastly, we look at another example in our own country, Malaysia, the first government project using BIM, which is the National Cancer Institute, okay, 690 million project, completed in 2013. The BIM tools that has been used, including Revit and also Navisworks, and it's a government effort to promote BIM, and it's able to minimize the waste in terms of time and the cost and improve the quality. And the benefits include avoid increase of construction costs, additional costs, okay, avoid the project delay, and increase the accuracy in the design process. So this success of the story, so of these projects, okay, actually had led to more government projects to continue to using BIM. Okay, we come to the conclusion for this morning talk. First of all, we know that there's a lot of issues and challenges in the construction project. Okay, construction project is never a simple thing. Okay, it involves so many people, so many parties, and the process is long. So the effectiveness of the building design and construction actually relies on the collaboration among the parties. Yeah. Architects is not the Superman or Superwoman who do everything. We need to collaborate with other consultants, with the contractor, different stakeholders. So that's why we should adopt the technology advancement, new process for better outcome. Okay, we want to achieve better predictability, reduce waste, save time, on-time delivery, avoid additional costs. That's why BIM is a platform that provides centralized database for single source of info, which support the collaboration. And the three important drivers of change, including the culture, technology, and business. I would say the technology is there. The business is also there. We know some of the developers also demand the use of BIM for their projects. It's very important, it's for the culture. We are the architects or consultants in the building industry. So we are shaping the culture. So let's start the paradigm shift from a documentation-centric to information-centric. okay, where we can use BIM for better collaboration with different parties, for better outcome of the project delivery. With that, I end my talk. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lim. So I think we can straight away start our Q&A session. There are a few questions from me myself, but firstly, I think I would like to declare myself as a level 0 user for this BIM. So
Start level 1.
yeah, going to. So that's my first question. Is like normally it takes how long for a, let's say, for a firm to master all these things, like from on the success story that you shared just now. It's just like within a year they can fully utilize this software for a projects already. So let's say if I want to implement this in my own practice, normally how long does it take? What's a practical period?
Okay, of course, we need time. There's a learning curve. We cannot expect that today I start, then tomorrow everything will be fine. And from some of the pilot projects, we can see that actually when they initially implemented BIM, it's end up having more problems, okay, because people need time to learn it. I wouldn't say there's an exact how long the period needed. It depends on the people and also depends on the project complexity. Yeah, but my opinion is that it's good for a firm to start with a small pilot projects. Because as I say, there is a learning curve. We need time to learn it. And some people come to me and say that I'm just doing some landed housing. Do I need BIM? It's such a simple project. Do I need BIM? They will say, why not? Start with a simple one. Yeah, even just a landed housing, you start with it, then you pick up the skill, the process, and easier for you to manage with a small project. Okay, rather than straight away start with a complex high rise or what, then you're not.
Disagree.
Yeah. So of course, in time, like 1 year, 2 years, then your company will slowly build out the people, and also it depends on how much training or the incentive that you give to your staff. I've seen some of the firms that actually give incentive to the staff. If the staff that they build out a BIM team, okay, those who have initiative to learn and adopt BIM in their company, and then actually the company will give them some token of appreciation after they completed the project. I think that would be a very great motivation. Okay, remember the culture driver factor. People need motivation. Like just now the survey, most of us say too busy to learn, right? No time to learn. But if you give some incentive, motivation to your staff, then most likely they say, yes, why not? I put extra effort, I learn after work, during the weekend, I pick up and apply in a small project. Of course, don't ask your staff, start with a high rise, start with a landed housing, then they're okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the next question for myself is that practical for us to start to use BIM even in the schematic design stage? Because I see that it involves a lot of collaborations between the stakeholders. So is that practical, like during the schematic design, start to use this one?
Okay, thanks. It's a very good question. I would say yes. Okay, you should start from the beginning. Start from the schematic design. Just now, actually, I have a slide on this LOD, level of development. Okay, but due to time constraint, I do not go into very detail to explain about that. But you can find out more info. You can search Google level of developments, then you can find out what is LOD BIM. When you are in the conceptual design, you only require LOD 100. Okay, schematic design, LOD 200. That means you actually do not need to model in that detail because you do not need the info at that particular time. You can just do a massing model. Okay, in BIM, we also can do massing. And then from the same massing, we can turn it into the actual wall, actual roof, actual components later on. You do not need to redo the model. That is about parametric modeling, where the same model can be progressively built up the info to be more and more detailed. So if you start from the beginning, it's a massing model, then later on you move on to level 300, then you start to build the properties. You put in the info like this is what is the material. Is it brick wall, RC wall, Is it what type of glazing and so on. So the same model can carry on from one phase to another phase. There's what we call BIM can be applied throughout the life cycle of the project, all the way until LOD 500, which is the as-built BIM model.
Okay, thank you. And then I see there's a few questions inside our Q&A. First, I think it's from our participant, Jeremy Lau. I think that this is about the collaboration in between the consultants. Say that actually, how could we bridge the gap in between architects, CNS, and MAE? Because most probably, let's say we start from architecture, but maybe our peers, CNS and MAE, they did not use that. So the question is that, how could we bridge the gap? What's your opinion on this?
Okay, thank you, Jeremy Lau, for the good questions. Yeah, no, when you involve in a project, sometimes you started BIM, but the other parties maybe not yet. That's why BEP, like just now I said, BIM execution plan is very important, where everyone sit down and discuss in the team, including all the CNS, M&E, and so on, how we can apply BIM to what stage, to what usage. If everyone in the team, they have the initiative, they want to apply BIM, then it's very good. Okay, we can sit down to really discuss what is the BEP, BIM execution plan. What platform are we going to use, what software, what guidelines, standard that we're going to refer. This is doable if there's a request from the clients. Okay, let's say the developer said, all the consultants, this project we are going to use BIM. So like it or not, all the consultants will use BIM. And then we can sit down to discuss. And of course, architect, we should take the lead as well. But in the case when there is no requirement from the clients, and if all the other consultants reluctant to adopt BIM, they're so used to the conventional way, the CAD way, so that is quite challenging. Yeah. But what we can do is that we can start from ourselves, but there is a lot of additional work might needed, because when we get the CNS drawing, for example, it's 2D, then we need to turn it into the BIM model. It's like we are working on behalf of them to do some coordination. But I think if for a simple project, if we can start with that, we might able to present the BIM model in the consultant meeting with the clients, then that will give a very good awareness or very good encouragement, motivation for other consultants to see that, yeah, actually this is something that we can do. And if the client is impressed, then I think all the other consultants might follow as well. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah.
Even though it's just level 1 BIM, it's all right.
Yeah.
For everyone to start on.
That is from bottom up. Of course, from top down, if you make it as a statutory requirement, like mandatory submission requirements, then that means there's no option, everyone will apply it. Yeah.
Okay, we move to the next question from this Chun Fu. Does your practice implement BIM? If it does, which BIM applications does your practice utilize?
Okay, I would say we implemented BIM, but mainly just for coordination and clash detection. Okay, and so far we don't really go into some analysis, not yet to that stage. Okay, mainly we use BIM to form our model, and I have experienced that the CNS, M&E are not using BIM, but it's for a simple project. We get their drawings, we do the BIM. Okay, we do the structure, then we found some clash, then we do the coordination, the adjust. But we also have experience is that the client demand it, required it, so all the consultant use, then it's very good. We use that, but it's mainly just for clash detection. Okay, and also of course we use it to produce some drawings as well. So I would say even for myself, in the actual practice, we are still at level 1 and moving to level 2. Just some simple collaboration, which is the clash detection at the moment. Yeah.
So which BIM applications does your practice utilize? Is it Revit or ArchiCAD?
It's Revit.
Okay. Actually, this link to my another question also, because just now I saw that there are few applications there BIM applications. Does all these applications they provide this 3D until 7D, or actually different applications they provide different types of how to say the functions?
Yes, exactly. If you look at my slide just now, giving some example of different software. Not one software can do everything. For instance, Revit is mainly a modeling software. Okay, but Revit currently also have plug-in. For example, the Autodesk Insight, where you can plug in to run some simulation for sustainability performance like solar analysis, lighting analysis. Okay, this is a plugin that we can install. But Revit itself is mainly just for modeling. And of course, it can do some schedule, clash detection, but simple one. Okay. Yeah, if they want to do a more proper 4D BIM, they have to export to another software. For example, Navisworks. Okay, if you want to go for cost analysis, then have to export to another software, for example, Recall or other simulation software. So we have to know what kind of application or analysis that we want to do, 4D, 5D, 6D, or so on. Then we have to choose the appropriate software. And because in BIM, we have actually this IFC format, which is an open source format that we can export from one software to another software. But in reality, actually, there are still some issues. Sometimes when we export the model, you found out that, yeah, some information is lost, then you need to touch up the model a bit.
Seems like a lot more to learn. Okay, we have one last question from Mohammed Faisal. What time duration estimate to practice and implement the BIM process in the design stage?
Okay, thank you, Mohammed Faisal, for the questions. I think similar to the question from Architect Friday just now, the time we needed is depends. Okay, depends on the complexity of the project and also your team. Okay, if your team is well trained, have a strong team, then of course we can implement BIM faster. But as I say, it's good to start with a small project. And it takes time. Don't expect 1 week you can get that. Okay, at least 1 year, 2 years. Then you can see that your BIM, your team becomes stronger, and then you also need time to build out the library. Okay, you build out your own templates, your BIM templates, your BIM library. Then when your next project comes, that's why I say start with a small pilot project. We build out the library. The next project comes, then you will be very fast to pick up again, compare with the first project. First project, usually you take time to build out all these things. When it comes to the next project, then it's faster and faster. Then when your team is become stronger, then you have a motivation among the staff, then I think that will be faster. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lim. I think we have come to the end of the sessions. Thanks again for your comprehensive sharing. And then also we'd like to thank again Blue Scott Lysat and also our secretary in Hemsworth chapter. So, okay, thank you all for joining the session. See you all again and have a good weekend. For those who need the CPD points, remember to fill in the Google form later. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.